that it was stupid in the first place. I don't think it was executed how it should have been.
What should have happened instead was they removed the people that they didn't like, i.e. Pred and Wrangler, and the PPSO, and then they just rebuilt that department with the people that they wanted there, instead of doing it to the whole department.
I think it should have been planned. I think that the people who were going into those positions should have had the equal opportunity to plan how they wanted their department to look before the decision was made. Like,
yeah,
I should have been given... myself and Tessa should have been given more notice to be able to plan. Is essentially it. And I don't hold that against Bass. It's not Bass's decision. It was, hey, these are the people that are going to be doing it. They had the chance to plan, and then it was a last minute swap to me. It's how it went.
I can tell you now, there were certain things that were very discouraging and very likely out of your hands. For example, and I'm not going to ask the context of whatever conversations took place, but not seeing Horver picked in the first round killed me.
Oh, me too.
And I know that's the thing. But I think any person within Shift 3 or Shift 1 who deals with Horver on a daily basis would be able to vouch for him.
Yep. And I went into a meeting and some people got overturned. I'm just going to say it. Some people got overturned and Horver was Doc can back me up here. Horver was the only one that I had that personable experience with to be able to try and fight for. And I did try and fight for him, and any opportunity I got to bring up his name as someone I wanted back, I did. And it was, I wasn't even going to hire. Well, I didn't hire until I was given the ability to have him back.
I also think that
it was a withdrawn decision. It was from people who didn't know who he was.
I think
was a better go off of, because what you were saying earlier, Matt, about Bass winning a different shift, for Horvath's a perfect example of he was he was essentially, we were given a no by people who have never probably set foot in Shift 3 with Horvath for longer than an hour. And it has been, and I think will be, a problem.
And I stand by what I said. I think that is one of the issues, is when certain things are being vetoed, for example, in this case, Horver, by people who just don't know who they are. Right? Like, I, as a member of high command prior to the shakeup, would have happily vouched for Horver. And I don't know, maybe it was a numbers thing, and everyone who got accepted, somehow got ranked higher than Horver. But like, unless you deal with this person on a daily basis, it is hard to sit there and say, well, no, because you don't know them. It would be unfair for me to rank anyone in any sort of capacity on Shift 2 because I don't deal with them. So how do we, ultimately prevent those situations from happening?
Yeah, the option.
Especially, I think the most problematic part is that's apparently this even occurred despite y'all arguing for Horver. Like, that blows my mind. If the argument, or not argument, well, actually, yes, if the argument is, well, there's high command there to sort of bridge that gap, that's clearly not the case if y'all aren't being listened to. I don't know.
I definitely feel like I have more value now with Bass there. I do. I definitely think that he would hear me out if I had issues. The issue is that there is a divide between the two shifts. So when I say that the issues with Shift 3 is that people aren't having fun, and I know that that's like a hard thing to say, but it's a scale that balances, right? If people who are doing crime, and it's shitty to say, if people who are doing crime are having fun, we're going to have more fun, and vice versa. And no one is having fun in Shift 3, and it's leading to the people who have been here for years not wanting to get on duty because they're just bored. And that divide is so hard to explain to someone like Bass, who's in a shift where things are constantly happening. And I'm kind of left in being that bridge between myself and Bass and like communicating the things that are happening. But it would be so much easier if there was someone here that just understood the issue. I think that the I like the idea of the combined UPD. I do.
It's pitch out of
I think that sorry, not combined UPD, combined UPD High Command. I don't think we should be in a department, and it would suck to be like, I don't think I could not favor the LSPD in some aspect. But I think the only way that we're all going to be looking out for the best for everyone in the UPD is if we are all one, or if there's someone who is all three.
I don't know. All I know is that I'm not a very
I didn't upset you when I
person.
said that, Doc. I'm so sorry, but I didn't say you. Did I? Are you okay? Oh God.
He'll be fine.
I didn't say anything, did I?
No, you're fine.
God.
My primary concern is that, you know, much like you mentioning, people want to enjoy their job, but I don't want to see another Pred or another Nova who their reason for leaving is essentially, I don't feel like I fit. If it was, you know, I've done what I've done and I'm content with this, and it was my goal to do this and I've done it, and I'm going to do something else, that's fine. If it's I got another job that I am going to enjoy more, perfectly fine. But when people start saying things like, I don't feel like I fit, that becomes problematic. And the reason I think having a commissioner around these shifts would help is for the same reason, you know, the Horver stuff occurred.
Do I need to just like, as the only like I've got Dark here, obviously. This isn't me like being like the only High Command member, but as the department lead, do I just need to like, as a temporary escape to fix it? I don't know what I'm doing to be able to do it, to be honest. Like, I felt in the dark from day one. So maybe I should have just been like, well, fuck you, this is my decision, accept it, or that's it. Do I need to do more of that, do you think? And I'm not saying that as like, don't say no just to appease me.
No.
Honestly, like,
I'll tell you the truth. One of the only people willing to do that was Pred.
yeah.
I
think at first I was scared because
Pred is more than willing to be the person who gets held over the fucking fire and take all the blame. That is why Pred has always worked so well.
Yeah.
Very few people are willing to, myself included. I mean, I would always argue, right? But at the end of the day, if a decision was made, right, that's that. Pred would often go up to the damn front of the meeting room and just say, fuck this. No, don't do that. Even though an announcement may have said otherwise, right? Like, because that was Pred and there was no changing him. Unfortunately, it got to the point where, you know, he just didn't agree with the lot and just wouldn't listen at all, which, yes, is problematic. But again, having someone around to understand our environment would be really nice.
I think maybe as a temporary escape, I need to step up and do that and be less. I think at first I was afraid of doing that because it's like a multiple reasons, I guess. I saw the way that things were taken from people super fast, and I didn't want to upset the powers that be. That I wanted time to actually like learn the role and do it before I upset people to the point where it was taken away from me, and I didn't have that backing of like, but look at all the good things I have done. I don't think Bass would ever do that to me. So maybe I just need to step up and start doing more and have the conversation with Bass and say that this is what's needed. Because I've already, since we've been talking, I've already emailed him to ask if we can have a catch up. And it's not, I don't want to be the person who's like, I'm going to do it. But I think that one resolution to all of this is me stepping up more. Not being afraid of like making the wrong decision, because at the end of the day, I guess I can fix mistakes. And if I make the wrong decision, I can fix it. And it's better for me to have to fix a mistake than for things to just go undealt with for weeks.
Not wrong, but remember, both of you were pretty much in an impossible position where y'all had just been handed positions in high command. You don't want your first impression to be y'all defying orders from someone
Oh
above
yeah,
you.
absolutely.
So it truly is an impossible situation. You either follow through with them, or the likelihood of you getting replaced is fairly high. So if you don't at least start, with following instructions or whatever the situation is, then you're screwed. You weren't going to make it beyond that.
I didn't feel like. Do you mind if I invite Snow? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Give me 1 second. I'm just gonna call him. I'm so sorry. That was such a random cutoff point.
No,
but I
you're
just realized
good.
I texted him and then, oh, he's on the phone. I'll call him in a second.
I think
I think that if I did this and then made the wrong decision, and I'm not saying that this is the solution, right? This is not going to be the end solution, because it's going to be a testing phase, and while coming back might be ideal, I can't. Me stepping up and just doing it, I can say that I can do that. But me saying that I can back someone into the ability of them coming back, I can't say that I can do that, because at the end of the day, that decision is not one I can just make. That is one that's going to be beyond me. But in the meantime, I can just be like, well, this is how it's going to be. If they have a problem with it, they come to me. And you know what? I'm probably never going to hear anything bad, because no one knows how to talk to anyone in this department, in this entire fucking UPD, to tell them when they don't agree with something. So I don't even think there'll be any problems.
yeah,
Because if
yeah, you're
someone
not
has a
wrong.
problem with the decision I make, I probably won't hear about it for fucking 8 months. Give me 1 second. Hello? Hey.
You okay?
It's just rough. It is rough. The
Yeah.
Pred thing yesterday, Nova today. Sorry, my alarm's going off.
I'm just waiting to see who's next. That's the point I'm at.
I don't know who could be put in a position like that in which morale would be raised outside of Pred. Like I said before, the whole leadership is sometimes kind of like raising a child. There's no perfect guide. There's no book you can read. You wing it. You just wing it, and Pred did it well. his ability to just get people to do as he asked, and I mean, think of the dumb shit that Pred has done with pretty much the entirety of his
Fuck.
department, whether that be
Fuck.
interdepartment brawls. Are you good?
Yeah, I bumped my chair. There we go. Sorry, did I bump your chair too?
No, mine's over here, but I'm just gonna sit on. Oh, there goes the table.
Oh, you
If
guys
I'm
are
being honest, the two people that Bass would be comfortable having as a partner, let's say, are the two people sitting opposite this table from me.
I wouldn't take it. Maybe there will be a day in which I'd consider, but it's not now, and it's not any time in the near future. I I have been enjoying myself. And the reason I can enjoy myself and other people may not be able to is because I am in a completely different position to where I no longer have to deal with everyone's issues. As a member of high command, yeah, sure, chain of command, whatever, command should have dealt with it. But everything was still in front of me and I saw it. And if I wasn't actively participating, it bothered me because that meant that I could help more. Right. And I was stuck in meetings for 90% of my day, whether that be people questioning whether or not they can get approval for stuff or if something's okay and did they do this right. And I never wanted to be the unapproachable person. And yeah, I guess I shot myself in the foot, but I wouldn't feel okay if I just kept shrugging people off. And right now, I have the benefit of being able to answer all of those questions because I don't also have the countless meetings and approval. Can I get permission for this? This is the context. An hour discussing a scenario, only for me to say yes or no. You can, use this or that. Um, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. And I think,
Honey,
yeah,
respectfully, I think I know you a little better than you know you. And if you ever got the opportunity to help the 200, 300 people in PD, you'd choose them over you every day. And you said yourself that Pride is the only person you'd see in that position. But you've also said that it was you and Pred that made that leadership position what it was because you could balance him out. And yeah, you don't have the same level of let's say aggression or how much of a loud voice he has, but PBSO
People
wouldn't have been the
still listen.
same.
You don't need
There is
to talk that loud for
nobody
people to listen.
in this city that has a good relationship with DOJ, with the mayor's office, with civilians, with criminals, and PD than you. That is what the commissioner is. That is what we agree it should be. It is a bridge between PD and everything else. And Libby, Baz wanted you as his 2IC. So ain't no way he would, if he agreed that this was needed, I reckon you'd be the first person to get the job, to be offered it.
I think we would need to step away from departments, though. That's like this whole thing. Like, no matter who is put in the position, I think they need to step away from being a department head. They need
Yeah.
to be a commissioner. They need to be focused on the UPD. They cannot be this is it's not against Bass. It's not against anyone. They can't be a department lead because they have to focus on their department, building their department, and everything alongside that, as well as the UPD. It needs to be someone who can focus on everyone, even if it's just within their own little time bubble.
I agree.
Like,
I
they
think
need to care about Beric as much as they care about Maddie, for example.
with this, if these changes are discussed and they might happen. I think one of those changes need to be Bass needs to give the troopers to somebody else. I think he needs to, like you're saying, he can't be head of a department. Commissioners can't be head of a department. He needs to go to somebody else.
And the other solution to that is, I don't think anyone else in High Command would agree, though. The other solution to that is we are UPD High Command, not LSPD High Command.
Okay.
I
Because I should, like...
I don't see that working,
sorry.
unfortunately, because you're not going to get Toretti out of his SDSO uniform.
Yeah, that's what I say. Like, I don't think that they would agree to it. I just think that you need to have someone that looks out for everyone and has the ability to say, you did this is what's wrong, without having to go to a discussion phase with that department. It's like, I want to know if my officers do something wrong at the moment. And I'm not saying that I'm innocent of this. Like, if something happened with someone in LSPD that Toretti had to deal with, I would want to know about it before, like, if it's major, before punishments are issued. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be, we should be able to just, like, do it and deal with it, right? And it needs to be someone that can do that for every shift, because sometimes they just should not go for days unanswered.
I think this needs to be clarified both for me and for the conversation with Bass, because he's probably going to ask, what is the problem you're bringing forth here? Like,
I think there's too much of a disconnect between shift 2 and the other shifts right now, and the opportunities and the problems with shifts are too significantly different that decisions made for one shift are applicable to other shifts. I think is one of the biggest things.
I think right now, if Bass is on duty and Bass says to do something that we typically cannot, if it comes from Bass, there isn't a soul in the police department that will second guess his decision making. However, if Richard, for example, you said to do something that may technically be against SOPs, right? People may be a bit hesitant because...
No, it's not maybe.
Right?
They already are, yeah.
Exactly. But I can guarantee you, no one would second guess a decision made by the commissioner. Why? Because although they are human and capable of making mistakes, they're at the very top. Very, very top. And even though if you made the wrong call, you would fully take responsibility for that. And whatever decision, you know, if you told someone to shoot and it was the improper call, you would not hesitate to take responsibility. Same as Bass. It is far more comfortable to, again, take that choice or call made by the commissioner with no one above them in rank than someone beneath them in rank.
And I think people are more willing to go to Bass and tell him that he's made the wrong decision in terms of, like, the mayor and whatnot, DOJ. I think they're more willing to go to Bass and say, this is what you did wrong, than they are to come to URI. Because at the moment, they would go to Bass rather than coming to us. Like, even if we did something wrong.
And again,
I will say, the two problems that you guys just gave me, I feel like could have very different solutions. I don't feel like those two problems are intertwined as much as we've talked about them. Like, for you, Matt, you're saying that decisions can be made by commissioners that are, like, foolproof, no one's going to question them, that kind of thing, they're final.
But that's not the only thing. In fact, one of my biggest concerns is, for example, the Horver situation. There not being that representation is massive when it comes to decision making, and it essentially killing morale. When I didn't see Horver in PD, it wasn't just like, oh, let me just continue another day normally as myself. There is a noticeable difference when people, again, that you see every single day just don't show up, except this time it's not by choice. It's because, unfortunately, you know, someone who's around for however many hours just doesn't know this individual. And I think it's fair if you are unaware of someone to not have them as your first choice. But if you then have additional high command members saying, hey, this person's good, and that being vetoed, it's like, well, that's shitty. But anyone who knows Horver knows the amount of time and effort he puts into his job every single day. And there are countless, I don't want to say countless other examples. There are definitely other examples as well. But when stuff like that happens, listen, people forgive, but it's not often that they forget. And so I don't know about Horver, but I would assume that anytime he gets called into the office, he's probably sitting there in the back of his mind thinking, am I going to be let go? And that's really fucking shitty.
I think cert leads is another example of that. And I'm not saying that people who are in cert leads aren't like a good fit because I don't know them. But are there other people who have missed that opportunity because they don't know Bass?
100%. 100%. Because I know that with HSPU, that any person we recommend has to be submitted and approved. But here's the issue. Me and McQuillan have to pick a few people for shift 3. We submit those names. Let's say we submit 2 names to Angel. Angel then submits them to Bass. Bass says no to one person, yes to the other. How do we fight for that person to get into HSPU if Bass is just generally unaware of who they are because there's no overlap in their shift? We can't.
Yeah. This was a big concern of mine when I heard about Brian having the conversation with Bass about, which people he was thinking about hiring for detectives. Because it was like Soze was the one approving everybody, and then Bass got put in this position, and we were like, okay, great. Things are changing. And Bass was like, okay, you don't have to get approval for who you want to hire for your departments anymore. Fantastic. But then, for some reason, he has kept this sort approval thing. And I do not understand it. I do not understand how he can reasonably say that he can have good, unbiased, and proper decisions for all 3 shifts for very specific work, like certifications. I don't think that's...
He's trying his hardest, but it is not practical or feasible.
I think it's good intentions.
Oh, 100%. I just don't think it's practical or feasible to have the entirety of the weight on the shoulders of a single person. Hell, running a single department with a sheriff and undersheriff was difficult. And that is with delegating to countless people, right? But if even I had a tough time dealing with that, it sure as hell is not going to be easier in the position above. Not at all.
The issue is going to come here that Bash is going to feel like he's getting ambushed.
That's the thing. I think there's a solution to that. It should not be phrased as Bass, you could be doing better. It's Bass, you could really use some help. Like, it is not feasible for all of this to fall on your shoulders. There needs to be someone else. I agree with you. I unfortunately think
sorry. I'll give you a call back in a little bit. I appreciate you though, dude. Thank you so much for calling me.
No easy way.
All right. Bye.
I'm
gonna piss.
Bring that forward, but how else is this ever gonna, come across?
What I'm concerned about is, look at who Bass has promoted, right? He promoted Brian and he promoted Mountain. And I don't particularly have anything professionally against the two of them. But I feel like
they
they're
both in the same shift.
I think Brian's technically shift 1.
He rolls
'cause
over too. He gets on duty at the meet. This is what I'm saying. Like when the whole like shift thing isn't an accurate like.
It's not.
Shift 2, in my eyes, is from the meeting to the meeting, and shift 1 and shift 3 are crammed into this between meetings essentially. So I think they're both like whole shift between meetings.
It's just that I think, I to be fair, I don't know if Bass promoted Brian. I don't know if that was the case. But from an outside perspective, it just looks like Bass promotes the people who are closest to him. The people that are next to him, it doesn't matter whether they actually have his good intentions or not. Whoever makes themselves closest to Bass are going to be the people getting promoted. So I'm worried that if it's left to Bass, we're not going to get someone who's a good representative of shift 1 into 3 or shift 3 into 1.
I don't think that's possible to not get someone, because I don't think that there's anyone who people look up to in these shifts that wouldn't make a good fit. I think that because the people he's close to are the ones in shift 2 that he works with, and he can see what their work is like. While yes, he can't see what the work is like during these shifts, I don't think there's anyone that would do a bad job of being the voice.
Let me try to put this into context here, right? I don't even know what rank. What rank is Brian?
He's a sergeant.
Sergeant?
What rank is Malton?
Sergeant.
As troopers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let me put this into perspective. And Richard, you said, I don't think there's anyone, more fitting than you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're referencing me.
Yes.
I am a trooper. And there is no one above me in my shift as a trooper. Make sense of that. Here's the thing. To be clear, I don't want the position. But there is no one in that position.
Are you saying that what your point is that most people that get promoted from Bass are in shift 2, or the people that he sees the most often?
No. It, again, sort of back to the, general sort of lack of representation, because although there's troopers, there is no trooper, sergeant, trooper, whatever the heck you want to call them. My chain of command and my shift is me, and then command of every other department, because there's no one above me outside of Bass in my shift. I mean, Bass isn't in my shift, but you get what I'm saying.
Yes, I know what you're saying.
Are there any other trooper sergeants outside of Brian and Malton?
No.
So there's 2 for, okay, Brian is 1, Malton is 2, and then there's
3's
none
missing.
for 3. Okay. Though Brian is typically
after the meeting.
Okay.
I think he starts.
Yeah, I think he's like an hour before, but like not.
He's a little bit before.
I think he takes the time to kind of like recoup himself and like get his daily plan in place. And I could be wrong. I don't cross paths with him enough to say that this is exactly what he does. But from what I could pick up on, he kind of comes in, does the investigation stuff he needs to do, and like puts the pieces together for the day.
That makes sense.
I think he'd be available if you called him. But I don't know.
But if he's showing up, would you say an hour before the storm?
I could be wrong. I don't. Dark would probably, or Snow would probably have more.
I feel like he turns up in about 2.5, 3 hours, somewhere in that region. So he's on duty.
Snow, I've got one here.
I'm gonna dramatically lean.
Okay.
That is glass.
It's tempered. Hopefully.
Libby, did you feel snowing
Yeah.
on what we're talking about?
No. So essentially, the discussion started. In case you are not aware, yesterday, Pred left the PD.
What?
And yeah, he quit yesterday.
Okay.
And I'm probably not the best person to give a recap on it, but I think he's going for a, what was the word that you used?
Mercenary.
Yes, mercenary Pred arc. And then today Nova has left the PD as well. Her reasoning to me was that
How Nova leaving the PD?
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Why?
Her reasoning to me was that essentially, like, she has to make the decision to keep those close to her safe, and that focusing on everything that happens in her life and
That's a
being
bullshit
an
reason.
officer, yes, being an officer at the same time is time consuming and is affecting her health. I think that that's part of it, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that that's the whole reason. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that for the longest time, if someone has an issue with the way you do something within PD, they don't come to you about it, and
Oh,
you don't
dude, that's
find
been a
out
problem
about it
since I was
until
chief.
weeks later.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly. And I think that you can only put up with so much of that and lose so much of your defense mechanism until it gets unbearable, right? And she's lost. I mean, who did she work the closest with for the longest time? Pred and Wrangler. And for both of them to be gone and her not to have that level of, I mean, Dark and I can only do so much in the limited time we've had, not have that defense mechanism for her and defend her above anything else. It's going to wear her down, right? And she's not going to, she, I don't think that she would ever gotten past feeling like people had it out for her. So I can't blame her for leaving. But the discussion started there, and it's kind of like, well, how do we stop people feeling that like that in the future? And then it kind of evolved to, would Pred make a good fit to be the equivalent of Bass or above Bass? And now it's kind of gone to, well, how do we fix the issue of shift 1 and shift 3 work well together? We're kind of like our own little island, and then shift 2 is its own ball game. And I don't think that you can compare shift 1 and shift 3 to shift 2 at all. I think you've got your before meeting people and your after meeting people, and it's almost 2 shifts rather than 3.
Like I don't know if this is.
Can I ask you? I'm sorry. I got to ask this. Why is that Bass's fault? Or is
It's
am
not
I
Bass's fault.
misunderstanding?
It's not.
None of this is Bass's fault.
We think he needs help.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
Understood. I get what you're saying now. All right.
Yeah, no shade is being thrown at Bass here at all.
Okay.
But we're kind of like just in the discussion phase of how do we help shift 3 and shift 1 feel less like an island, and I don't even know if it's less like an island.
No, it is, because before the meeting in 4.5 hours from now, truthfully, I wouldn't consider. I know based on the schedule as written, until 4 hours after the meeting is technically still shift 1. I wholeheartedly disagree. There is a very clear cutoff at that meeting for the amount of people who show up for shift 1 prior to. I know very little people who are in shift 2, and that primarily stems from the fact that I don't show up for the meeting. And I don't show up for the meeting because typically I would only have an hour, hour and a half, most of which is going to be occupied by the meeting. And I'm not then going to spend 20, 30 minutes going out on patrol because I won't be able to finish anything in that time. So it's like an hour and a half condensed down to pretty much nothing. And I would rather utilize that hour and a half doing something else, because otherwise it's going to be a meeting that I had already heard 12 hours prior. at least for me. And again, like, to me, there's a very distinct, clear cutoff at that meeting. So like mentally for me, that meeting and everything after it is pretty much 2. But that's at least like my mental thought. Obviously, it's still technically 1 for a few hours.
So then there's two different things we've been discussing, and one of them, I think Dark was like looking off into the city when I said this, like, how do I step up? And I think, full admittance for me, I kind of got put in a position, was unprepared, didn't know what I was doing, didn't want to overstep, kind of asked, sorry, it's my phone, someone messaged me. Didn't want to overstep, didn't want to make the wrong decisions, didn't want the backlash of doing stuff wrong, so probably didn't step up enough. And I'll be the first person to admit that I probably haven't taken the full reign of the position to do everything that I could have been doing. I've done what was expected of me, but I could have done more, right? In that, we've got like this disconnect between things get noticed in shift 2 and things can get like, fuck, now I've lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. I do this all the time.
Me too. It's okay.
You're good. It might have been the discussion about how, you know, people who are around Bass can very easily be acknowledged because Bass has firsthand experience with them. Which is fine, but the problem becomes in areas where he's not around. And he's a single person, and it's not fair for the entirety of the weight of the PD to be on his shoulders and his shoulders alone. So when certain decisions have to go by him, it becomes difficult for him to be able to determine who's a good fit for, let's say, shift 1 or 3, when he's not around to have firsthand experience with those people.
Okay.
And sort of a prime example of that, at least to my knowledge, is Horver. Now, I don't know if you share the same opinion as me of Horver, but he's a damn good cop.
Yes,
in
he is.
just about every capacity.
Yes,
Yet
he is.
He was shot down during the UPD restructure.
Yes, he was.
Why? I don't know. I wasn't present. But Libby had mentioned that she fought for him as much as she could. And despite Libby being in shift 3 exclusively, I mean, into 1, obviously, he still didn't get through, which I think is problematic, because I think if there was a commissioner to assist with 3 into 1 in some capacity, they would have very easily acknowledged that Horver is a damn good fit. And that never should have happened. And here's the issue. When something like that happens to you, you don't just shrug it off. I guarantee every time Horver gets called into a meeting, he's likely sitting there questioning whether or not it's his last day in the PD. And that's really fucking shitty. Through no fault of his own. And I hate that anyone would have to go through that.
Things have gotten better. 100% things have gotten better since Bass hasn't been in that position.
Yeah, I agree.
But there is still that missing, like, it's still there, right? For example, you guys don't have any, well, Brian comes around a little bit later, but until Brian comes around, there's a gap, even in like Trooper Command, for example. Because there's no one here to be able to see the amount of time and effort that people put in. And even certs is a good example. I'm not saying that people that lead certs aren't a good fit, because I don't know them. I'm sure they are a great fit, but they are all shift 1 into 2. And I don't think that we need them. I'm not saying that, but like, when it comes to those leadership positions, are you going to be able to develop and have the opportunities that a shift 2 officer would have without having someone here that can see what you do?
I mean, yeah, I think your points are valid. I guess I do have a few questions though. Okay, 1, how would you solve this and with who? 2, if you were thinking Pred, because you brought him up, you also mentioned that he said he's a mercenary. Now, we know Pred very well, and when he sets his mind to something, it's hard to get him off that. You think you can change his mindset from quitting PD to being a mercenary and then back to being a commissioner again, if that's even what you're suggesting? I don't know if I'm reading this wrong.
No,
Sorry
okay,
if
to
I
be
am.
clear, he said that. I don't think he's killed anyone yet.
Okay, but you know what he's like. You know, Pred says, okay, I'm going to go and do this now. His mind is on that. Does not deviate.
Yeah, not wrong.
And this time, there's nobody in his command team like you or Jenny to stop him, unfortunately.
You're not wrong. I think the reality is, while Pred typically doesn't bluff, I don't think he's serious about being a mercenary. Um, uh, I don't know, the way he was describing it. Like, I know Pred. I've known him for years. I know sort of the way in which he says certain things, and what to take serious, what not to take serious. I wasn't quite taking the mercenary stuff seriously, as much as I was, his discussion of how he just doesn't like the direction of PD. And I could be wrong, but I want to say that he did mention the only thing that he would consider returning for is overthrowing Bass. Overthrowing Bass isn't going to happen. That's the reality. It's just not going to happen. But I think working alongside Bass could work. I don't know. I'm not certain. I do know that there needs to be a commissioner or 3-1, because that is an area of concern in terms of a lack of representation. What
For
was the other
me,
question?
it was more so how do I help these concerns in my ability as chief of police? Like, what can I be doing better? And I'm not saying this to be like, I want like honest responses, and because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's been like that from day one. I have no fucking clue. I was thrown in with no preparation. I don't know what I'm doing. How do I do better so that this is less of something happening? Like,
Okay, I got you. I have a suggestion. Number one for both of you is presence. The more you guys are around, the more you guys are seen by other ranks, lower ranks, other department heads and whatnot, the better. I know that everyone is just an email away, but believe me, I've said that before. I've been in that same position, and people will not email you. You guys know this. You know, we discussed this at the start. People, if they have problems, they will not come to you. A lot of the time, you have to go to them. I know that's fucking stupid because you're in a leadership role, but that's the reality that we're in with this particular police department. It's something that's been going on for years. I had it when I was chief. It ain't ever going to change. It's a human being thing. It's just, it's entirely normal in any workplace, in my opinion. So the fact that you guys are already recognizing that there are issues is a good thing. The next step of it is going to those particular issues and speaking with those people. And basically, I mean, if I were you, I would task them with seeing how they would fix things. I'll wait until you're finished.
I didn't mean to answer that. I meant to hang up.
You're absolutely fine. Don't worry.
Oh no.
But yeah, I think simply you guys being around, and I know that other reasons prevent. I know, Libby, you've got a lot going on. I understand. I don't think anybody can argue with that. But I can tell you, when you guys are around, people feel a lot better. It's kind of it sounds weird, but it's true. I feel a lot better when there's like command members around. I mean, like, I know. I mean, okay, so I'm a kind of officer. I know I can make a call in the field. I know I will answer for whatever call I make in the field, and I take responsibility for it. Not everybody is like that. So those guys hearing decisions and stuff happen on the field, and anything to do with like disciplinary action, hearing those decisions coming from you guys means something to those guys. A lot. It means a lot. Presence is huge, always. That's one big thing. And it's not really something that I think either of you are necessarily doing wrong. A lot of reasons, again, Libby, you've had a lot of reasons that have prevented you from getting on duty a lot recently. And a lot of those reasons, or all of those reasons, are far more important than anything going on here. but I will still say presence is important, and people definitely like to see you guys around. It's why like Stubble is around a lot, right? So as a result, you know, people see him and hear him all the time, and they feel supported. You know, that's the reality of it. Yeah. And
I
I hope you don't
agree
think
with
I'm
all
being an
that.
arsehole. I'm not trying to say you
No, I'll
guys
ask for
aren't being
feedback.
around.
Like, the hard part
Uh,
is that like there has been very little feedback because Bass doesn't see the way I do things. He can go off what he hears, but you know, the
Mhm.
person who is above me that can help guide me, he's not in this shift. So I need people who are willing to tell me how it is and tell me how I can do better so that I can do better, because I want the people who have started like disappearing from duty to want to get on duty. I want everyone to be here. I want everyone to be having fun because it hasn't been that way since way since the restructure. People are disappearing who were here every single day for weeks, months, years on end.
yeah. I think
And
presence will help with that. It's like you can compare it to let's take it back to medieval times when where armies just ran at each other with sharp, you know, metal sticks and stuff, and shouted as they did it, right? When they had their leader with them at the front leading the charge, and let's example, Pred was a good example of someone who did and does that. You know, they feel much better about themselves, and as a result, they perform better on the field. It's tried and tested through history for hundreds and hundreds of years.
This is true.
So yeah,
I notice it when I'm on duty. It's a completely different like.
yes, people feel confident, people are happier, people feel supported. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that they stress out that they'll have to be the decision maker if someone like me isn't here.
Yes.
Just the other day, like there was an S plus boost, and when I got on radio, everyone seemed so tense and like they needed to take it so seriously until I started laughing about the fact that they were in a go-kart. And then it seemed like everyone just kind of chilled out. And I think it is that people don't want to have to be that decision maker, so I need to be the brunt of that.
Yeah, so I've been calling around people like Candice and Barrick and telling them when they make a tough decision in the field that I think it's a good or a bad one. 9 times out of 10, I tell them, I haven't told either of them that I think they made a bad decision yet. I always call them to reaffirm that I think they're making the right calls. You know, remember we have a lot of command members who also don't have a lot of experience with us, like pushing back against the criminals, which is something that we are doing at the moment. You know, there have been examples of where we've made calls to shoot first, and there's a lot of officers who do not and aren't even close to having the confidence of making those kind of calls right now. We've been beaten down for such a long time; they're just not used to that. So a lot of these command members
to it. That's the problem. I think that's what scares me off as well. I'm not used to it because when I was in that position, I'm not used to being the boss. I'm used to being like I've had someone there safeguarding me too. Like I always had Davenport. I always had Espinos. Like they were always in a position above me where I had someone that would back me up if I made the wrong decision. And now I have to make those wrong decisions, and I got no one there. So I think I got scared off too. So I can understand what it's like. Because
You know,
people call me and be like, "This is what I want to do." I'll be like, well, "I don't fucking know. Like, how do I even say like?"
That's what people on roads roads and I are for. You know, anybody in state. I would maybe not necessarily everyone because everyone's developing a little still, but there's a lot of people within state who has the knowledge.
Yeah, I think I get called out a lot for the fact that I brought back a bunch of people and put them in positions to help me develop the department that we're gonna leave, and I'm so glad I did because I needed those people there to be able to fucking tell me things because I didn't know what I was doing. And people still say like it was the wrong thing to do. But I have Viv, Maddie, and Sweets now who have had the time to work with people that had experience to help develop them a little bit. And now, like, the 3 of them are great. The 3 of them are, like, they do a really good job and they've really helped develop the department.
Yeah.
But what was I meant to do without those people that helped me build it? Just be like, I don't know. Don't ask LSPD. Don't get any of us to do anything because we have no clue what we're doing.
Yeah. I think a lot of people throw the where's the culture question around a lot as well. And I don't really, for me, that's not something that's it's not really something I've ever really thought about when joining a police department before. For me, it's about what results. I mean, I guess, everybody's different, so not everybody looks at each department the way I do. When I look at a department, I look at results. I look at how they're looked after by their command team, how they're supported and whatnot. I look at how they push themselves out on the field and that kind of thing. And that kind of stuff happens naturally. I think people that are trying to force a culture to happen, it just isn't. It's not how it happens. Culture just comes out, naturally. You force it, then ain't gonna be nothing, mate.
I think it's oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. What was I gonna say? Are you guys aware of the trooper lieutenant thing that's coming up?
No.
Yes, I spoke to Bass about it yesterday.
Okay. Well, so at the last meeting, Bass announced that. Well, he actually asked us if we wanted a vote or an appointment, basically. But he wants 2 lieutenants, one for each time zone, to assist with state because he can't necessarily. Would you like me to quote his? I'll quote it. Is that okay, Rhodes? If I do that, it's fine, right?
Well, I mean, was it discussed during the meeting?
Yes, yeah.
If
We had
so,
a
I
meeting
can't
up at
imagine-
Eric's.
I can't imagine it would be that big of a deal.
I don't like being like a guy and just reading from Discord.
Give us the general gist of it in your own words. How about that?
Yeah. Okay, I got you. Basically, he said he wouldn't be able to give his attention at all times. So he's gone with the idea of 2 trooper co-leads of state police, and their whole purpose would be maintaining the culture that we desire, working with the commissioner, other troopers, other departments, all that kind of shit, stuff that lieutenants do. Yeah. So that's something that's coming soon.
So it's not high command, it's just command.
Correct. It wouldn't be high command, no. I think that would be too many high command then.
But it's
So
the heads of the troopers? Is that what it is?
yes, which means the
Oh.
BAS would take a step back and focus more on PD as a whole and be able to help and assist with other departments and not just have to focus on state because we're
Which is
still
what we were
like
saying
developing,
earlier. Like, I think that ideal world and ideal outcome would be
Angel and
someone
Snow, Angel
that
and
has
Rhodes.
Bass's abilities
That's
that
my
can be
opinion.
around at this time of day as well. I'm not saying take Bass out of that position. I think it'd be good to have someone else that can do, whether it be an assistant for Bass or something like that, that comes around at this time of day.
Copper.
Equal or
And
assistant,
they
or both?
aren't.
Copper or Angel
They
for shift 2.
aren't. Wait, what was that? Sorry, I don't know. I think that it's going to be tough to have someone with Bass's reach to say that they'll be equivalent. I think that there's always going to be a bias towards working with Bass outside the shift. And I don't know. I think equal would be preferable, but I think just someone else up there that I don't think they should be in a department. I think they should be UPD. And they look after the better of every department rather than just being like, I know that Bass does both. I think that he can balance both. But I think if you took away the responsibilities of looking after Trooper by making him the commissioner of the UPD and just leading the UPD as a whole, it'd make that the person that would step into that position for this shift, like from the get-go, it'd be understood what their position was. Fuck me, I gotta turn this phone on silent, by the way. I don't know if that was
You're good.
what I was
You're
trying
good,
to
don't
say.
worry.
You good, dude.
I think
No, it
they
makes
need to be
sense.
equal, but for this shift.
Yeah. I mean, do you think the trooper command thing will help alleviate any of this issue at all? Or do you think it's more of like you just want the presence of someone like Bass around during these time zones? Is that more what you're looking for?
That, for me, that would be more fitting, personally.
Okay.
And I
What do
think
you-
it's more fitting just on the basis that, much like you said about, high command presence, I think the same thing applies to commissioner-related stuff. And, oftentimes I feel like we deal with stuff that isn't exactly in line with what happens on, with Shift 2. And there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution to everything. And sometimes you do need those exceptions made for specific things. that may only come from the commissioner. Typically, high command isn't, changing weapon-related SOPs.